Cíí agus tá fáilteró the Bookline here on LiffeySound96.4 FM. Teresa Quinn is my name, and I'm delighted to welcome and chat with many of our Irish authors here on Bookline about their books, fiction and non-fiction, and indeed their writing journey. It's my pleasure to explore these avenues with all of my authors. And today, my author is Peter Donno, who has recently published a manual for the human spirit. Very thought-provoking and maybe intense book, I would think. Delighted to have you on the programme, Pete, and congratulations on the publication of a manual for the human spirit. I must say, don't know whether enjoy reading it is how I would describe it, but I did find it very thought-provoking. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for the invite to come along and talk about it. It is a hard read because the clue's in the title. It's a manual, and so although there are anecdotal stories and there's information in there, what I find is that if people have an area of their life that they want to understand more about, just go to that section in the book, but you'll be looking at that area of life from an energy perspective, not a materialistic perspective.
So maybe you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing and the vision, that you talk about in the book that was to change your life.
Yeah. So I was born with an incredible amount of energy, as noted by the hospitals that I went to when I was a kid, and I grew up basically in a padded nursery because I just had too much energy and it was uncontrollable for my parents. So the best thing to do was just put me in a room, surround it with mattresses, and then throw toys at me, and that was pretty good. It was a survival technique for them and me, I'm sure of it. But what happened was that energy just wouldn't turn off. So I became trouble. I became a problem child. I was given mental, and I was giving all these labels because I was simply vibrating at a higher frequency than others, and that of course was causing problems. I suppose I'd be labelled as ADHD or something and be given some sort of chemical to slow me down. But in those days there was none of that. So what happened was when I was as I say, incredibly energetic, so much so that I was unable to read or write. So by the time I left the education system, I was illiterate, could barely know what end of a pen to pick up. But then what happened was I had this one night where I got, and it felt like someone had plugged two wires into the back of my head and got this, what I can only describe as probably a download of some sort. Well, for me, it was just pain, but I'm sure that within that was the information that I needed. Shortly after that, I started speaking to people who were in comas, but they were still in the hospital in comas. But I was talking to them as if they were in just natural life, in real life. And that became an incredibly life-changing event in some ways, because I realized all of a sudden, well, if the person I'm talking to isn't real and they're in a hospital bed in a coma, then who am I? Am I real? Is the other person real? Are any of these people? So I needed to kind of get a grip on that situation. And I realized that it was all about energy. The whole thing was about the energy of life. And within that energy is consciousness. From that moment, I started then to study and to try and understand more about energy. I was able to draw the geometry at the beginning of time and how energy worked and all these other things, but I didn't know how I had the ability to do it. And of course I was channeling and just downloading, but those words weren't in my vocabulary at that point in time. As I started to evolve and started to understand it, and then I kind of went through life just being able to use this energy and really having a good time with it. I mean, it was fantastic, but it reached a point in my life when I had a child. And of course, you take off the glasses that you think is life and you put on a completely new pair of glasses, like, whoa, that's different. And that's basically what happened to me. but I'd accumulated, I kind of turned around and I'd accumulated an incredible amount of scientific research papers. And I found I ended up, because this was a subject that fascinated me, I learned how to read and I actually learned how to write through a computer. So I kind of was now gaining intellectual momentum that I was able to vocabularize what I was going through. And then a few more mystical experiences, a couple of healing sessions that were just off the scale. And all of a sudden, I was in a position where I kind of made a deal with the interdimensional beings and angels or God or what, however you want to phrase that in whatever parlance you want to use. I made a deal. I said, okay, well, look, if you give me the money where I can take time off work and give me that time, then I'll write the book. And then all of a sudden, there was an incredible amount of money in my account. I manifested, quite a lot of money. And then I was like, that means, and one, it confirmed that someone was listening, and two, that I now had to get my finger out and write the book. So I kind of didn't really know, I obviously didn't really know how to put it together, but I surrounded myself with fabulous editors who were able to, every single sentence in that book has been crafted, every single one of them. So as I was able to express what I was feeling and what I was seeing to try and get it into words. But then I had to write it in a way where if somebody, let's say they've got a bad back, they'd be able to go to the book and say, okay, what part of my back is feeling a bit bad? Are there any emotional issues in my life to do with at this point in time? And that could be causing the problem as to why people have a bad back. So I had to kind of find a way to be able to express all this information, but it was quite tricky. It was quite tricky.
I'd say it was, but you weren't very dependent on, I suppose, the editors who came back to you and said whether, how you were trying to explain it was would be understood by somebody else who didn't have any of that knowledge.
Absolutely. There was an editor who kind of was able to say, okay, well, look, this is what we need to achieve from the book, and let's look at it from the big picture. Then there was another editor in England who was able to, who was on a spiritual journey and wanted to know more about herself. And so she was reading the book as if she wanted to learn. And then it was fantastic because then she said, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I'd have to rewrite the sentence. Now do you get it? And she'd go, oh, right, yeah, now I get it. So, and then there was another editor who was able to cross the T's and dot the I's, But there was another editor basically, but not in this dimension so much. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but when I was trying to find out how energy comes through a black hole, so there's basically we think of black holes as being these enormous beasts in the middle of a galaxy spinning, but what they are is they're actually in atoms as well. They're in space, they're in time, they're omnipresent through the entire universe. In fact, a scientist has just proved this. So it's I put it in the book 2 years ago, and all of a sudden now this scientist, Nassim Haramein, has been able to absolutely scientifically prove it. I mean, the whole world's going to change from his discoveries. What happened was I wanted to know how a chakra was created and how it was formed. And so I kind of went into this like channeling state that I've never really been in before. And I did the drawings and I wrote the stuff down and did the whole thing, went to bed that night, woke up in the morning and looked at what I'd actually written. And I was like, I didn't do that. I thought, I'm bright, I'm pretty good, but I'm not that clever. And it was like, oh my God, that's how energy works. That's how it spins and spirals, but as it's doing so through these microscopically, 1,000 times smaller than the Planck's constant, they're incredibly small places. As it spins out of that, it can then start collecting and formulating matter, like a galaxy, or a chakra, or a family. So it was a fascinating apps for me personally. It was head-splittingly hard to do because it wasn't, my natural resource. I just had to step out of my comfort zone, give up work, dedicate myself to the book, get the book done, and then reassess my entire life fearlessly.
So did you find it difficult to make the decision to go ahead with the book, to do the manual, when you came to these, shall we say, obstacles?
In some ways, it was, but because I had a son now, and I wanted him to be able to understand not just the narrative of the systems. So there's a political system, there's a banking system, there's a health system, there's a financial system, and these all have narratives that they want us to subscribe to. But there's actually another narrative I'd say below, but it's actually all around that, all encompassing. And that is a narrative of energy. And that energy has a consciousness to it. And that consciousness exists on the energy of love. When I found that out, I fell over laughing. I just thought it was the most amazing thing. It was like, oh my God, the whole thing is based on love. And I've read like hundreds of science books, but all of a sudden, this part of my brain was going, yeah, but that means that, and that means that. And so therefore, it can only mean this. And then when I started talking to people about their experiences in life and what we actually do in life, we all sing about it, we all talk about it, we all want it, but none of us are really quite sure what it is. And we're still discovering. Science doesn't really know what love is. It doesn't know what fire is. It doesn't know what water is. And it's still, time and space is a bit of a confusion for it as well. So we're still discovering life, and the consciousness that we use as we are is also evolving. So that point of love is also evolving as well. And I think we can see that in society today with the turmoil that's going on, and we're all kind of waking up a little bit, going, hang on a minute. What's happening here? So it's fantastic.
So you had a lot of, research and papers and diagrams and books.
Yeah.
When you started out to put your manual together, but did you need to access more further knowledge about spirituality and the science of positive energy to get the book?
Yeah.
To a readable, understandable quality to other people,
I had there's two ways of looking at life. One is a classical point of view, which means that everything is put into its isolated box, like a Victorian case. So the butterflies going here, the beetles go in there, and the rodents go in there, and that's how life actually operates. It just separates everything, duality, and says we're all different. But a new scientific way of thinking is actually, it's not like that. It's polarity. We are all connected. Everything is connected, and it's connected by this energy. So I was kind of making an educational journey through these two ways of thinking about science and the ways of thinking about life. And just as I reached the pinnacle of one of them, which was the quantum physics side of it, then the book was to be written, which then meant I had to read the latest scientific data, the latest scientific information about how you can use this energy to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. And that doesn't matter whether it's financially, whether it's your health, whether it's your relationships, whether you want to manifest something. It doesn't matter. If you use energy and this incredible scientific knowledge that they have now about how it works, that had to go in the book. But even then, I predicted what was going to happen next because I got these downloads. So I was able to predict that Nassim Harriman, who's going to give this lecture at the end of September, that he's going to blow the scientific community apart. I mean, he's correct. He's basically discovered the theory of everything. So the science is escalating to understand our part in the universe and how powerful and beautiful we all are. But we just don't get it because systems are like, well, you shouldn't,
You don't, I suppose, rock the boat, shall we say?
Yeah, but it's in a sea of energy. But unfortunately, the truth will out, and that's that. You can't stop that. And if the whole raison d'etre of mankind is to learn how to love itself more, that's it. That's the bottom line. And there's now a science to that. There's a spiritual aspect to that. That if you love yourself more, you vibrate at a higher frequency, and if you can vibrate at a higher frequency, you can manifest more things that you need, not that you want.
You mightn't want some of them, but you do need them.
Yeah. But isn't there? There's the expression: if you need it, it won't pass you, or something like that.
Well, so they say. So, did you find it difficult to put into practical terms, the reality of mind over matter?
Not for me, because I empirically understand it. But if as an introduction into it, there's people like Joe Dispenza, who I did a 1-week retreat with, who basically say, okay, if you want to now start to use energy in your life, one of the most powerful things you can do is in the morning, instead of picking when you wake up, instead of the first thing you reach for is your phone, leave it for an hour, 2 if you possibly can, so as that you could then meditate about what you want to achieve that day. Because what you're actually doing is, although when you meditate, you talk to a higher force and a higher energy, but you also talk to your own cells and molecules. So instead of waking up in the morning and saying to yourself, oh, I'm stressed, I've got no money, I need a job, and your brain goes into that monkey mind, just, quite self-destructive. You say, no, I'm not going to have this. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to love myself more. I'm going to get more energy, and I'm going to manifest these things. Now, I don't know if we have the time to talk about how manifestation works, but what happens is your cells and molecules for that 1 hour in the morning, instead of the start of their day going straight back into a stress, now go back into a heightened mode of love or above. And that is healthy. Mentally, physically, spiritually, scientifically proved a really healthy thing to do. So that's just a really simple tool that you can use in the mornings. Is just wake up, be grateful for what you have in your life, be thankful, and then try and get as much energy in to think about what you want to achieve in that day, what you want to achieve with your life, and for those around you that you love.
And that is probably something that as you start to practice it, I won't say it becomes easy, but it becomes easier as you utilize that tool of switching off from the connected world, shall we say, and go back into yourself and use your abilities. That's
right. Yeah. Because the thing is that there's a line in a Marianne Williamson poem. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. That's a truth. That's not just a line in a poem. That is an absolute truth. Each and every one of us. And in the book, I talk about how much energy we actually generate. Each cell can generate. It's phenomenal amounts of energy. But the problem is, our focus is divergent. We're so busy looking at screens, or how well our team played, or the colour of this, or the size of that. And it's like, look at what's going on in your life. And so the moment people start to click into this, oh, I get it, then their focus becomes convergent. And the moment you become convergent and focused, that's when you can start to move mountains and planets. If you go on YouTube, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of YouTube broadcasters who all talk about how they became focused on something in their lives and how they manifested wealth, health, happiness, joy, a relationship, or whatever. I mean, it's common, almost. It's in the lexicon now. It's common knowledge.
But it is something that takes practice to learn to focus just on yourself and your abilities and your qualities, I suppose, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we're not so at school. It's a problem because we're not educated about ourselves. We're educated about the outside world. And when I left school, I never felt educated. I felt processed. I did. That's how I felt. I was put into a school with all the misfits and all the weirdos and the people who I couldn't educate, and we were just processed for menial tasks when we left school. But it's not like that. We actually are these bundles of incredible energy, and so the journey to understanding how energy works actually isn't outwards; it's inwards. And if one can start to say, "Well, I am a beautiful person. I am a fantastic being. I am fabulous. I am gorgeous," but the world's going, "No, you're not. You're skin. You're ugly. You're tall. You're small. You're fat. You're thin. You're red." And it puts these labels on us that are all negative, that have no relevance whatsoever. But if we then say, "Well, listen, thank you very much for your opinion, but the opinion of myself is I'm a beautiful person and I'm just trying to get through life and do my best." Our purpose in life is to understand more about love. That's it. And because once you start to do that, everything else makes sense. But that journey is in. So anybody who wants to go on this journey, just start to love yourself more. Be nice to yourself. Be kind. Understand how your energy works. Understand how you work as a human being. And all of a sudden, it'll all start to make sense. Once you decide, and here's a very, very important point. Intent has more power than we can possibly imagine. The moment you have the intent to be rich, to be healthy, to be happy, to love yourself more, unbelievable things happen. Every cell in your body starts to vibrate at a frequency that is different to what it is prior to that. Your biofield becomes actually larger. The auric field around you becomes larger and more powerful and more colourful the moment you have the intent to love yourself more. And an intent is I can't stress enough, you know the expression, be careful what you wish for? Well, that's a misuse of the word intent. But if you intend on doing something in your life, there's nothing can stop you apart from you. That's it.
So really this hour, 2 hours that you're suggesting that we try to do without our phones, without all the other connections to the outside world, is actually focusing us on what we really want from life and what we want to be able to do.
Yeah. So the way that energy works is, okay. Let's say I'll use an example. First of all, I'll tell you how it works. So your thoughts are electric, and they're the language of the mind. Your emotions are magnetic, and that's the language of the body, and that is the electromagnetic connection. When you're having that 1 hour session with yourself in the mornings and loving yourself, and you want to achieve something in your life, what you're doing is you're using the electrical thoughts in your mind to project that into the future, to say, okay, in a year's time, tomorrow, in 1 week, I want to achieve something, whatever that something is. But the trick to manifesting in a 4-dimensional reality, which is what we're talking about, you can manifest in a 3-dimensional and you can manifest in a 5th dimensional, but let's just keep it in the 4th dimension at the moment, which is time. So you're putting your wish in the future, in a future time. Here's the trick. Don't wait for it to happen before you're happy. Be happy now. I'm going to be on a beach in Barbados in a year's time. I'm on my way to the beach. Now all of a sudden, every cell and molecule in your body, and this has been proved like 30,000 people, Dr. Joe Dispenza wired up to prove this. Every cell and molecule in your body will change. It will start to become energized to achieve the body and the health that you're going to need to go to that beach in Barbados in a year's time. And so it's or to win a sporting event or to be healthy. But you don't wait for it to happen. You live the emotion now, because the body doesn't know what time it's in. So you're telling your body, listen, we're living in the future now, and it's going to be a really happy, healthy place. Your body creates the cells and molecules for that event. It doesn't. But the problem is we go, oh no, I can't. life's too bad. I'm not feeling very well, and that's just you can't have that. You can't have low self-esteem and that spiritual journey in the same place. I saw this happen once with a guy called Niall at a conference with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Niall had stage 4 cancer and basically had been told to go home and make himself comfortable before he passed. But he wasn't accepting that, because what he had I think it was 3 daughters, and he'd be like, no, I'm going to see my daughters go to school. I'm going to see them. I'm going to their weddings. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So what he did was he just put himself into the future, and he said, right, my body is healthy. I'm taking my kids to school. I'm going to their weddings. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And for 8 hours a day, that's what he did. Not just 1 hour. He did it for 8 hours a day. He focused on that. His body, and you have to be a different person. The person who heals has to be the person who got ill in the first place. So what happens is you're telling your body, listen, we're no longer creating these cells and molecules from a historical reference. We're creating cells and molecules for a future event. And the body will start creating the cells and molecules for that future event. And Niall was on stage in front of 5,000 people telling us about it, and we were all in tears. It was amazing. I mean, and that's just one event. And, if you go into this, there's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people now are able to manifest in a 4-dimensional reality using that technique. Put your thoughts out, get the emotions back, live like it's already happened.
Listen, thank you very much, Pete. So just tell us where the book is available so that so many of our listeners today can get it for themselves to work on it, because it is a thing that you have to work at and becomes easier to manage once you do work at it, but you need a manual to help you to get started.
Yeah, I wrote the book for my son so as that he could, go on a journey, whatever journey he wanted to go on energetically. Here was the information to behind all that. But the book is available in the City Books in Kilkenny High Street, or you can buy it from my website, multiversalenergy.com. I also do one-to-ones with people. I've started an online coaching course, but the preference is that you have to have the book, because we use it as a reference tool during. So if anybody wants to go on that energetic journey, please just get in touch.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and very exciting thinking about such an adventure. So Teresa Quinn, Bookline, Pete Donno, and A Manual for the Human Spirit. It's sunlit, God bless, and good reading.